Hello and welcome to Empire Rugby League, the Western Front edition. Again, it's Morgs in the host chair with Sweeney off doing Sweeney things. So it's just me and Beatrix tonight. So Beatrix, how you going, mate?
Good, mate. Well, Sweeney is here with us tonight. So for those of you on YouTube, you still get to see Sweeney's beautiful face.
And it's a beautiful face.
Doesn't miss out completely.
So, how you been? Everything's going good. Your week's looking good, and
everything's going well, mate. It'd be better if you could get a win on the weekend, but getting closer every week, and the young blokes getting some experience. So it's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'd love to say I wish you best luck for this weekend, but I mean, I think we know I can't say that. So we'll see you down there on Saturday. But anyway, let's get.
It's 1 year on since we've done possibly our favourite interview since we started up the podcast. WA royalty. Probably I'll go a step further, and he's rugby league royalty in Sully, James Sullivan. So yeah, just wanted to remind people of that one, and head over to our socials, click on the link, and give that one a listen again, because Sully, the great man, he's done a lot for the game, continues to do a lot for the game, and yeah, good man.
The voice of the New South Wales Rugby League, almost, I'd say, commentating hundreds and hundreds of games, isn't it? I think on all their social media streams and across all that. So yeah, absolute legend. It was a great podcast, and an even better afternoon after talking footy. Our listeners to go back and listen to that podcast and listen to the one we did with Rod Fielding as well, talking the history of WA Rugby League, because those episodes, they don't age. They hold their merit, and they hold the content is true, and it's about what we're about here at Empire Rugby League in the Western Front, and what WA Rugby League's about. So, before we get too emotional talking about our past, cracking. So we're going to do it a bit differently than what we've sort of done. We're recording here on a Wednesday night. I'm sure everyone's seen all the first grade results. There's no point us going over the scores. We all know what they are. So we're going to talk about the game of the week, what we sort of saw, sort of our thoughts from that game. So that's a Fremantle 56 over Ellenbrook 10. So Beatrix, what are your thoughts on this one as an experienced coach amongst us?
Look, it just shows that, Fremantle are they're one of those top three sides that are battling it out for the Premiership. It's probably between them and South Perth to really throw the challenge at Willagee this year. They sort of just flex their muscle. Sort of might have expected a little bit more from Ellenbrook. They have found a bit of form, but I'm sure, like most clubs in the competition, they battle with a bit of FIFO. So it's hard to get a bit of consistency week in, week out when you're dealing with that.
Yeah, I think I agree. Looking at that score and watching the game sort of a couple of days later, I think Freo can maybe almost look at it and be disappointed they only got 56 on the board. I think they probably looked a lot better than that. Their spine players, the players sort of we've spoken about over the years, Edwards, in the seven there, Leilua, a new player who I believe is a union player from New Zealand, look really good. The Beak over from South Perth this year, there's a real mix there of old heads and some sort of younger kids coming through with a bit of experience and stuff like that. So I think Freo looked really good. There was a lot of attack, and it was maybe a few errors forcing that last pass, and a few sort of simple mistakes that cost them sort of racking up a 60 or 70 score. For Ellenbrook, I think Joyce, the lock, looked really good. A lot of work, a lot of tackles, and I think a player really just sort of watch on the come up for Ellenbrook there. So yeah, challenging week for Ellenbrook, and I think, like you said, Beatrix, that top four looks pretty locked in now as we head into the second half of the season. A couple of top four clashes this weekend. Early tip, I reckon Freo might be a big shot of upsetting the undefeated Bears, but we might talk a bit more about next week's games later. So I think just as well, moving on, just highlight sort of quickly maybe our performance of the week. Travis Haney, South Perth. South Perth obviously did a number on Mike Granada Titans in the first grade. we had a lot of players stepping up from VMT. I think we had 4 players making their debut, but Haney, 4 tries. It's a big effort in any game, any situation, any time. So shout out to Travis. Great performance.
Yeah, he's a big, powerful guy. He's very hard to stop. Moves very well across the field. Yeah, 4 tries in any game, no matter the opposition that you're playing against, is pretty impressive. But yeah, tough day for your guys. But yeah, South Perth, once again, they're one of those teams that are going to challenge for the title.
Yeah, and I didn't realise until doing a bit of research and a bit of reading. Travis, American, I believe, a bit of gridiron background and indoor athletics. So, really interesting sort of seeing a different sort of background in league. And obviously he's been around the game here for a while, had a big influence. So, yeah, really good to see. Congratulations on that.
I'm pretty sure he's an Aussie now because he played for the Bushrangers a few years ago in the Nines. So.
Oh, definitely Aussie then,
We've adopted him.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's it. We'll adopt anyone as Australians, as long as you've seen an Australian sunset and an Australian sunrise, you're Aussie. Moving on to the women's. Our game of the week, we had Joondalup 22 over Willagee 4. So I think probably a result that surprised me. I thought Willagee had looked really good early in the season, some good results. And Joondalup, we know they've got some players, they've got some talent, but maybe hadn't put it on the board. So I think that's a shake to the competition and sort of showing that, while Ellenbrook might be the top team in that comp at the moment, there's 2 or 3 other teams that can compete and can be a threat. And I think that's what we want to see, competition and results that are up for grabs.
Yeah, I've been saying for a while, don't sleep on the Giants. They're a quality football team. So, they just needed to click and put in a proper full game performance. And yeah, they certainly did that on the weekend. A bit of an upset for Willagee. They're sort of one of the top contenders, but how good is it to see like a quite close competition? Obviously, Ellenbrook are the benchmark, but I mean, on their day, we've seen it last year. Whoever's there on grand final day is in with a shot. So, yeah, between the 4 top teams there, I think it's going to be a really tight competition.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think, like you said, Beatrix, on their day, any 4 of those teams can win and have shown they can win. And it only takes one injury, one player unavailable, and all of a sudden you're fighting an uphill battle.
Definitely.
So yeah, sort of moving on, I guess we've sort of spoken obviously briefly on Willagee being the top team and stuff like that, but we've been throwing around some concepts here at Empire Rugby League. Talking about, are there ways to sort of spread the talent around the clubs for the 9 teams in first grade to maybe have a bit of a more even share of the talent pool? And that's not to say, anything against the clubs that are having that success, because they're obviously built a lot of success on a lot of hard work. But we've got a lot of players here playing reserve grade, playing in the VMT that are absolutely first grade talent, but they're not getting it because they're being held. There's just other players above them. So one idea we've sort of discussed, and it's not our idea by any means, it's an idea we sort of is quite common in New South Wales, and that's a players' point system. So what that does is basically players are awarded a point based on the highest level of playing they've sort of achieved. So if that's an NRL player, ex-NRL player, they might be worth, say, 20 points for an example. New South Wales Cup, 15 players. But if you're a local junior to that club, that's wiped and you're 0 because you're a local junior. So as a base idea, like what's your thoughts on that, Beatrix, as a concept of spreading some talent and spreading some players around and maybe making the competition a bit more even without having to worry about a salary cap and financial sort of control for clubs?
It's I think it's certainly something that we're going to have to look at, especially with the Bears coming in. I'd imagine that there's going to be a lot of talent coming over, trying to make their way and push for the Bears over here in Western Australia. It's not and it's not easy for the clubs. Obviously, clubs are restricted financially, and to the clubs that do well financially, probably off the back of volunteers that go out there and go hard for the sponsorships and stuff like that. So fair play to them, but yeah, not everyone's in the same ballpark at the moment, especially with new clubs like Kwinana. You guys, Morgs, still not quite set up with the club rooms and all that sort of stuff. So it does make it difficult. But yeah, I like the point you made earlier about there's a lot of talent stuck in reserve grade that should play in first grade.
Yeah, and I think that's it. And we're not talking about, it's not even necessarily about forcing players to play elsewhere, but it's, if you're playing for your local club, your closest club, then you get a discount for that. Whereas if you choose to go and play for another club that's sort of further away outside your local area, that's going to come at a price for you, and that may impact the game time you're getting or getting first grade games. So, there'd be a lot of intricacies, and there's no way we could explain it and in detail now in a small podcast. It would be a governing body approach, and a whole system will take time to assess players' registrations, where they've played, where they're from, junior clubs, a whole heap of things. But it works elsewhere, and with contention, yes, but it's worked in like the Central Coast in New South Wales, and a lot of the New South Wales comps have it. And so like we said, if it's 100 points for first grade, it'd be a 75 points for BMT and 50 points for third grade. So you're not getting your ex-NRL players running around in third grade if they're going to be at a club, stuff like that. And I think it's worth considering. I think a point system, it's relatively transparent, because if you're an ex-NRL player, you're an ex-NRL player. We all know who they are. We all can identify the players in the comp like that. They should have a sort of a market value, I guess. We talk about in the NRL, players have to be paid at their market value. Well, why not have the same in Perth? Especially like you said, Beatrix, players coming over looking for opportunities with the Bears, especially when there's like maybe a local Perth-based New South Wales Cup team that's going to add extra quality to the game, which is amazing. But we want that regulated. The last thing we want to see, I feel, is one team dominating year on year and every other team sort of struggling. We're not an EPL, we're not a soccer style thing where it's 2 or 3 clubs and dominating, and if you're in the other group of clubs, you're happy with a 5th place finish. That's not what rugby league's about, and it shouldn't be what it's about anywhere.
No, definitely not. You sort of want fairness across the board, but yeah, in saying that, for a long period of time it was North Beach and South Perth, then Freo for a long time that dominated the competition. So you got to give
absolutely
their flowers at the moment. They're obviously doing something better than everyone else in the competition. But yeah, like we're saying, it's only better for the game if it's a more even playing field, especially with juniors that are coming through the clubs. Some clubs have got their average age would only be 23 with all the young kids they got coming through. Like, imagine how much better footballers they're going to be if they can play with some experienced guys that have played at a professional or semi-professional level.
Oh, that's it. We always talk about junior pathways and developing the junior players, and that's it. If you're a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, you're making your debut and you're in a Bear system, or you're sort of on the fringes of that stuff, and you can learn from, the bloke that's 20 years older of you, that's an ex-NRL Super League player. What could be better for your development than learning off those guys? And yeah, like you said, Beatrix, it's not about knocking one club, because we've seen other clubs have sustained success, and that's through hard work, dedication, and a good playing pool. It's around, if there's going to be 9, 10 teams in the first grade comp, you want every one of those games to pretty much be a toss of the coin every week as much as you can. There's always going to be a team that's having an off year and a team that's having a gun year, but let even it up and have that sort of competition, I think, is really, really key moving forward.
Especially with us, especially with the competition, live streaming games as well. They're out there to be watched worldwide, nationwide, whatever. We sort of want to be putting the best product out there to try and attract people to Western Australian Rugby League.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. And I think that's, if we're talking about getting players over, if you're seeing a score, watching on YouTube, and it's an 80-6 result, right, then that doesn't appeal to be a competition you want to be a part of. Whereas 24-18, trying the last minute, field goal to win the game, that's rugby league. That's competition. Because you're not going to want to come play for a club that's being flogged all the time, I don't think.
No.
Any final thoughts on that, Beatrix? I think we could talk for hours and we could outline the numbers and how it could all work, but the base idea is the better player you are, the higher level you played at, the more points that costs. And you can only have so many points per week. But if you're a local junior and you're a junior from that club, you count as 0 because you've been developed by that club. And I think that's the one important thing to remember. It's not about penalising clubs for developing juniors.
Yep.
It's about having a system in place that ranks and controls the players coming in from outside of that club.
No, I think you've explained it all quite well, just on the surface level, which is really all we've got time to get into it here. But maybe it's a full in-depth episode we can get into about all the ins and outs of how it works, and examples of how it's worked over in New South Wales.
If any of our YouTube video watchers want to see, I've got double page. This is just a small summary from the New South Wales Rugby League explanation of how it works. And like I said, we would absolutely have some local tweets to it. But if anyone wants to have those conversations, always happy to talk numbers and footy.
And if people that are listening on Spotify or wherever else you get this great podcast, it's double-sided and it's not in big fonts as Morgs.
No, it's literally a size 12 font. I've got my contacts in today and I can actually see what I'm doing. So moving on to some junior rep stuff. So we've got the Australian schoolboys, schoolgirls rugby league competitions happening in Coffs Harbour from the 4th of July. So that's end of next week. So still got some squads and some information dropping on that, schedules, game times, where you can watch it, all that sort of stuff will still be pending. So keep an eye out on our platforms and the governing body platform. But basics of that is it's WA under 16 boys, under 16 girls are travelling across the Coffs Harbour, and they'll play varying teams. So that might be the ACT, it might be Victoria, Northern Territory, and the different breakups of the Queensland and New South Wales school teams. Basically, our best talent, there's some really good players in both those squads playing, and it's that really good opportunity for those kids to test themselves against the elite under 16s around Australia. Slightly different in the under 18s. Instead of WA team, there's a CAS team, which is obviously, for those familiar with the game, is combined affiliate states and territories. Unfortunately, this year, I don't believe there's any Western Australian players involved in the under 18s boys or under 18s girls. But there's some players that sort of been in the fringes of those and going over for the CAS, sort of their train and trial period there. So still shout out to all those players that have sort of been on the fringes, but like I said, really good underage footy and the opportunity for the best school kids in Australia to shine.
And don't get too disheartened, boys, for anyone that didn't make the under 18s team. From what I've heard and a little bit of what I've seen, it's just a Victorian team with, I believe, one Northern Territory kid got picked. So, which is sort of as expected at that age group. Melbourne have pretty established in their pathways at the moment. So, I think that'll change in the years to come with the Bears coming in.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, especially with the Storm sort of developing the SG Ball, Harold Matts. I think for the first time ever, they've got pathways from under 17s through to the NRL. That's taken them since 1998, so that's 28 years. So, give the Bears time, hopefully a lot less than 28 years. 5 years is what I'd like to see, but, we will in time, hopefully not to have the CAS team and have our own state team in the 18s and have our 18s represented there. But either way, to all the kids playing across all the teams, all the states, this is the elite of that sort of school girl rugby league. And, we'll look back at these programs and these team lists in 5-10 years time and be like NRL player, NRLW player, there. And that's what I love. You see it, and these kids are unknown kids now, but it's pick the kids that will be those professionals, will be those gun players, and just the kids that are busting their backside, trying their best, and just having the time of their life. And that's what rugby league should be about: opportunity, but having fun.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for the 16s boys and girls going over to Coffs Harbour. Sorry, and an absolute mare there. Anyway, moving on. It's the Australian school competition. So, you're playing against all the best. You're playing in the same competition as all the best New South Wales and Queensland schools. So, all the scouts that are going to be there to watch all these pathway kids that are already in NRL systems are going to be there. They're going to be watching the games that you're playing in. So it's a great opportunity for them. And yeah, good luck to all the WA kids going over at the end of next week.
Yeah, we did hear some rumours on the grapevine, and we can't confirm if they're true or not, but around kids maybe sitting out this weekend around those age groups just to avoid injuries and I guess suspension as well potentially and stuff like that. Any thoughts on that, Beatrix, or makes sense?
I think probably it makes sense in a way. Like, you know, when you're a kid coming through, how often are these opportunities going to come about, especially over here in Western Australia? So I do understand it in that way, but at the same time, I think kids over here need to be playing footy as much as they can.
Yeah, I think, you know, like we see, I mean, Origin is obviously a very different concept. By the same token, we see players missing out for the clubs. I guess my main thought would be is I'd hate to see a team have to forfeit because they've lost 4 or 5 players and they don't have the numbers. So if it's an opportunity for the kids that are maybe on the fringes of some of those sort of under 15s, under 17s teams to get a bit more game time, then maybe that is footy, and that's what we see in the NRL. It's what we see week in, week out at higher levels. So, you know, that maybe there is a silver lining to it. And I guess you'd hate a kid to miss out because they go and do a hammy or do a calf or something like that in this time or something like that. So, hey, you know, if it means other kids are getting a bit more game time, I think I'll cop it as long as there's no forfeits. That would be the one thing I'd hate to see.
Yeah.
Just talking another bit of schoolboy rugby league. We spoke a couple of weeks ago about the schoolboy comp here featuring Atwell College, Darling Range Sports High, Rockingham High, and Baldover's High. The grand final was last week, I believe, and Rockingham had a convincing win, 48-18 over Darling Range. So that means Rockingham goes on to play a Victorian school team. As of yet, I don't know if that team's been confirmed.
Yeah, it has been. I did get told last night. I just completely forget.
Well, there you go, Beatrix, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what I'm saying there now. I'm having a moment. But yeah, I think really good and like a really strong performance there by Rockingham. You know, obviously a lot of players there sort of featuring for mainly obviously Rockingham Sharks, Kwinana Titans, but really good to see, you know, what that pathway represents. I think it's like you spoke about, having the opportunity to go over and whether it's playing Victoria or have a Victorian school team come over here, great opportunity, and just another opportunity to have even more kids and different kids in front of scouts and in front of sort of people having a watch.
Yeah, so Rockingham got a victory, so we'll take that one. And yeah, just shout out to Billy Woolmer. He was player of the match in that grand final. He'll debut for the Rockingham Sharks in first grade over the next month or so. And excitingly, whoever wins in this game out of Rockingham and the Victorian school will then go into the pool with a Sydney-based team. So the way it all works now is it all feeds into the nationwide schoolboy competition. So I suppose that'll be a goal for any team in any school in Western Australia to try and make it to that upper level of the competition and maybe get some TV time.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good because I know when we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, we maybe weren't quite sure where it went for the winner of the WA versus Victoria game. So to hear that is straight into sort of competing against Sydney schools and stuff like that is really good. And, you know, a bit of a scoop on some Rockingham Sharks first grade selections there. So heard it here first, ladies and gents. So yeah, congratulations to Rockingham Sharks, but also to the other 3 schools that have competed in that competition. And hopefully, as we said, we see that expand. Wanneroo, some of those other schools that have got the rugby league programs, hopefully they're in that competition next year and it's even bigger and better. So, looking ahead to, ladies and gentlemen, looking at my notes, and while I've got my contacts in, that's still a long way away. So, anything else to add to that before we do move on, Beatrix, or is that a?
No, it's just it's to move in the right direction. That the whole schoolboys competition set up now. So, yeah, well done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we sort of spoke about that. I've always liked the schoolboys comp. It's got a lot of history to it. You look at the sort of players that have been player of the match in the grand final, player of the competition. There's some serious talent there, sort of across a long period of time. So to see that a WA player could, in theory, be etching their name into that sort of list of players is awesome. So moving on to the senior games this weekend, I think, again, we're just going to highlight one game, a game that we feel could have a really sort of season-defining impact for both clubs. So we're looking at Kalamunda versus South Perth. So we're back to double so the second half of the season, repeat of round one, local derby weekend. Kalamunda and South Perth. Any thoughts on that game, Beatrix?
For our sake, it'll be nice if South Perth got the victory. It'll give us a glimmer of hope to scrape into the four. But no, I think South Perth they're a really good team this year. Way they all play together, the structure they play is awesome. Got Eddie Proudler leading them around. Caden McDonald with his speed. At 5'8" there, and yeah, obviously we touched on Travis Haney before. So yeah, they're a really good team, and obviously Kalamunda they're getting better and better every week, aren't they? And as long as they got Sonny in the team, they're going to be a dangerous side and should never be underestimated. It was an interesting change to see him move to 13 the other week. I wonder if that's a move that they're going to stick with moving forward, or if it was just a one-off to see how it works. But yeah, that'll be one to watch.
Yeah, I think this is really the season, maybe not defining game for Kalamunda, but a very season influential one, if that's a saying. I think if Kalamunda can pull off the win here, it really sort of consolidates their spot in the top four, and sort of maintains that sort of gap that the top four have on the other teams. Whereas it might, if South Perth get the bickies, it might just, as you mentioned, Beatrix, for your sake and for even for my sake with the Titans, give the other sort of five clubs in there a bit of a sniff and keep the season alive, because we want competition, like we were saying. And if the top four deserve to run away, well, good luck to them. But I'd love to see, a game in the last round sort of being a mini playoff game that sort of is to winner takes the final spot in the four or something like that. Like, let's keep it going. Let's keep all games having relevance on the finals, I think.
Absolutely.
And that game is at Kalamunda as well. So, that's probably in Kalamunda's favour. But like you said, I think Sonny Langley, that's the influence there, and that's the key for Kalamunda. That I think at home they might be too strong, but it's hard. It's hard to know, and it's like Eddie Proudler. There's so many dominant players and like long-term dominant players there for South Perth. I think we're going to see a close game. We called a couple of weeks ago the Kalamunda Fremantle game, I believe it was, and that was a draw. So maybe we're on for another draw here. No golden point, unfortunately. So see what plays out there. Game, we went Saturday before Friday because obviously that makes sense as the calendar moves. So we've got up at Charlotte's Vineyard Pavilion, and I got it out correctly this time after last year's struggles. And Ellenbrook versus Willagee, and I think this is going to be another game. Willagee looking to bounce back from probably, like we mentioned earlier, a bit of a surprise defeat last week. I think they'll be wanting to sort of show that they are in the finals race and can take it to sort of the dominant Ellenbrook team here. So what should be another very good game of attacking rugby league, I think.
Yeah, it should be a great game of footy, and much like you said, Kalamunda might have the advantage at home. I think Ellenbrook have proved, especially in the women's competition, that they're very hard to beat at home. So I think that'll give them the advantage, and I think they'll take home the biggies in that one.
And with a lot of rain forecast Friday, Saturday, Sunday, having played it up at Ellenbrook when it's been wet, and a lot of big puddles, that definitely adds sort of a bit more complexity to the game, and having to avoid accidental drowning and things like that. It's a bit of wet weather footy can be a real sort of equalising factor or it can be a real table turning factor. So I think across men's, women's, even juniors this week, we're going to see some interesting results when teams know how to play wet weather footy and teams don't. But hey, it's a winter sport and we love it because it's wet and wild.
Absolutely.
Final words, parting thoughts, Beatrix?
No, just get out there. I mean, it's gonna be a bit of a wet and wild weekend. So if you are getting out there to watch the footy, make sure you take your raincoat, your gumboots, and drive safe out there heading to the games in this wild weather over the weekend. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's MND round as well. So I think important to sort of, I know there's a few clubs going to be wearing the blue socks of MND and doing a few different fundraisers. So if there's fundraisers, if there's opportunities to support MND at the ground you're going to, really encourage you to sort of get it behind that. Obviously, final word, support your local clubs, buy a burger, buy a bucket of chips, support your local footy, juniors, seniors, and yeah, drive safe. And enjoy your local rugby league. We've been the Empire Rugby League podcast, the Western Front Edition. Beatrix and Morgs signing off.
good sign off.